Okay, Allison, are you there?
Hey, I am here.
Great. Good morning.
Good morning. It's very early here, so I'm just saying it's 7 here.
I know. Is this early for you? Are you an early riser
I
or
am. I'm a very early riser, so it's not bad, but I'll let you know I'm still sipping on my latte.
okay,
And
fair
those
enough.
coffee people can relate to that.
It's 10 o'clock in my world, so I'm caffeinated and I've been awake for a while. What time do you usually wake up?
Usually about 5:30ish. I do some stretches. I'm a yoga person, so I spend a little time kind of moving into my day.
Yep. Yeah, good. Yeah, me too. Well, I think we have a group of people that have joined. I'm sure many more will join in as we get going. So we'll maybe wait another second or so and let a few more people join in. But
Good, so I have time to take a sip.
yeah, take a sip, take a quick sip. Yeah, excited to have you with us and part of this exciting day for Children's Home Society. So this is new for us, and we'll talk a little bit about why here in a second. But thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, it is my favorite thing to talk about is instant family. So when anyone is like, "Hey, will you talk about instant family and how you got that gig?" Like it was the gig of the century. I do realize I do feel like I scored in a big way.
I think so. I've been inspired watching you on this journey. We go back a ways, and so it's been fun to watch you on this. I know you've been excited about it. So, well, I think we've got a group going here. So let's go ahead and get started and dive into this, Allison. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us. For those that are on here that I don't know, which hopefully it's many, my name is Matt Anderson and I'm the Vice President of Programs and Business Development for Children's Home Society of North Carolina. I'm actually here in Greensboro, North Carolina today, and Allison is with us all the way from the West Coast in Southern California. And in a second, Allison, I'll have you introduce yourself and kind of set up what we're going to talk about. But let me say a couple things first about why we're gathered here today on Facebook. And so normally, Allison, you'd be here in North Carolina 3 different times over the course of a few weeks, and you'd be our guest speaker at our annual Place to Call Home fundraiser. And we'd be gathered with over the course of those 3 events about 1,000 people of our closest friends and supporters and family members and people that love what we do at Children's Home Society. And those events are our annual Place to Call Home fundraiser events. They're critical for us, and we raise the funds necessary to run our programs. And so we use those funds to run our help run our foster care and adoption program, or our intensive family preservation program that helps prevent kids from coming into foster care, or our youth ed or parent ed programs. And so these are vital funds. This series of events raises about $1 million annually. So half of what we raise throughout the year in private donations. So it's an important part of what we do. And obviously, in current circumstances, we're not going to bring 1,000 people together in one place. And so this has to be a different year for us. We have to take a different approach. And just like a lot of people are adapting and adjusting and working differently right now. And we're doing the same. And so everybody that's on here, and Allison, thank you all for jumping on and being a part of this kind of new way of fundraising for Children's Home Society. And I know this is a difficult time for a lot of us. The coronavirus is something that's impacting every single one of us in some way or another, and it's a hard time. But what's been encouraging about this for me anyway, and Allison, I'm sure you too, and others, is it's a reminder of the importance of family. And family is at the core of our mission. It's what we do. It's why we exist. And this has been a reminder that when we need to be loved, or when we need to connect, or when we need to feel support, or actually have financial support, maybe it's our family that's there for us. And I think we're seeing that shine through right now. And even sometimes it's just a little humor. Sometimes we just need to laugh, and sometimes that meme that comes through in the group text with your family is just what you need to kind of keep things normal. So, but if you think about imagine it, and Allison, I think you can do this, and maybe others here can too. Imagine if you were 13 years old and you were in foster care today, and you're not connected to your biological family, and you're not sure where your siblings are, and maybe you haven't been able to connect with your mom or your dad for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And just imagine the stress of that. Imagine how difficult that is, because of this pandemic that we're going through. You're not connected, and that layered on top of the stress of just being in foster care anyway. It's a difficult experience for any child to go through. And so this year, what we're asking you to do is to help us with that. We really believe that every child should be in a safe, permanent, and loving family, and not be in the kind of unknown of being in foster care for many years and moving from one place to another, and then to layer on the stress of this uncertain time that we're in. It's really difficult for kids, and so. So we look for and rely on the support of folks, just like all of you that are on here today. And I'm also really excited. I want to announce something that we're doing different this year as well. We're going to create a family relief fund. Many of our foster parents and other families that we work with obviously have been impacted, and they've lost their job. Maybe they're in financial stress right now, and we want to help. They give to us and give to kids throughout the year, in amazing ways, and we want to help them in a time of need. So this relief fund will be available direct to families and clients that we serve, and 25% of the donations that people make on our website this month are going to go to that relief fund. So please go to chsnc.org/stayhome. And you can make a donation there, and 25% of your donation will go to this relief fund. And so, we can't do this work without our supporters. So we appreciate you and we thank you. And we're excited to have this conversation and the one this afternoon. And so that kind of sets the stage a little bit. I want to move to the main attraction here, the star of the show. So Allison, thank you again for being here. And, maybe you could take a second and introduce yourself.
Well, hi everybody. I'm thrilled to see people adding on the side. I can see when folks pop on the call, so I'm excited to be on this call and converse with Matt. I'm currently the executive director for the National Center on Adoption and Permanency, and I think that for me, how I like to introduce myself is I feel just a deep sense of gratitude to be able to do the work, and especially the advocacy work that I'm able to do on behalf of vulnerable children and especially youth and teens. As I was listening to you, Matt, I think one of the things I was really thinking of is people often don't know, if they're not immersed in the field as you and I are, that about 1 in 6 kids in the foster care system have been there over 5 years. There's a significant number of children that once they get inside the system, they're not getting out of the system. Children with high needs, high trauma, we have children that still today have eight homes, 8 placements, 10 placements that go from home to home and get stuck in residential treatment, or what we call long-term foster care, where they're spending their childhood inside a system. And it's unacceptable. I think if you're not really immersed in the field, sometimes the tendency is to think that the government's taking good care of those kids and it's really temporary. And for the majority of the kids, it is temporary, but there are many, many children that get stuck inside the system. And it's why organizations like Children's Home Society is so critical. They're really on the front lines of making sure that the kids that have the highest needs and that get stuck inside the system also have an opportunity for permanency and belonging. So when I first landed in the system as a young intern, I knew nothing about foster care or welfare. And I developed just a deep passion for our kids. It shocked me, actually. I remember that, like, my first few years, it was shocking to see children stuck in a system with the lack of permanency, like no family. I think there's this assumption that, well, everybody has a home to go to or the social distance in, right? Everyone has a place to hunker down. And it's just not true. And I think our country ought to be able to solve this problem. And I always want to be a part of that solution, as I know you do, Matt, and Children's Home Society does. Like, we want to be a part of that. Let's figure this out so we stop having children and youth either emancipate from the system because they don't have a permanent place to belong. They don't have family. It just is unconscionable that it still happens. So that was a long introduction, so I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. It's great. Thank you. And just to add a couple things, Allison, you're a therapist. You've been an executive in the field, running organizations. You're an author, but you were also the consultant, kind of the foster care expert consultant on the movie Instant Family.
What movie?
There you go. That's
I
the
just want to make sure people, it always
Yeah,
surprises me when I ask people, has everyone seen the movie? And I get foster parents and adoptive parents going, no. And I'm like, well, it's your movie. So I always want to make sure they see it.
For a little bit of fun, I know we got a lot of people listening in that love the movie, know the movie, some don't. Maybe in the comments, just put what's your favorite scene in the movie. I think that'd be fun for people to see. There's some great scenes, or maybe your favorite character, favorite actor. Allison knows that I'm a big Joan Cusack fan, and I loved her appearance in it. But Allison, let me say something. I know that we're going to talk a little bit about your role on this film, and there's at least two things that I know you have in common with Children's Home Society as I thought about this, and one is the belief in family, right? That family is at the core, family is the foundation, family is at the center of what kids need, and really what our communities and what our society needs to thrive. Strong families lead to strong communities, strong society, and it's important work, right? What we do is important work. And I know you also believe in the power of storytelling, because that's what I think got you into this work with Instant Family. But we have those connections with Children's Home Society, but you and I have that connection too. We actually have known each other for over 10 years, which is a little mind blowing. And maybe you can talk about how we met and what that connection was. It was around family and story.
Well, how I stalked you is how I lovingly say.
Right.
You finished producing, and you did this in Montana, a documentary that I still love to this day and still use to this day, called From Place to Place. In fact, that documentary I sent to Sean Anders as we were doing script development before the movie was ever in production, because he was just kind of picking my brain about what do I need to know, what do I need to watch, and I was just sending him books. In fact, one of the other shout outs I want to give, Ashley Rhodes Corder is on the call right now. She's listening. And one of the other books I sent to Sean Anders was her book called Three Little Words, which is one of my favorite books for our youth out there and our alumni out there. So shout out to Ashley. I love that she's on the call right now. But From Place to Place, when I was stalking you, because one of the things that From Place to Place allowed us to do, because it's a fabulous documentary that follows and tracks kids kind of stuck in child welfare that will be emancipating on their own. And I don't know any 18-year-old that's ready to have no place to belong, no support, the love of a family, a place to go for the holidays. I mean, if you think about what we really ask of our youth, I always hate the word independent living program, because I go, none of us are meant to be an island. So it's just the wrong way to think about it. For me, that's when we've failed our kids, when we're launching them into independence, which is this myth that we can do that successfully. So one of the things you were doing, you were traveling around the nation, screening the film and challenging communities to come and listen to their youth. So we pulled together a panel, and it's when I kind of stalked you, like, oh, you are coming here. You're coming to where I am. And I wanted to invite, not necessarily, and you and I have talked about this, Matt, not the people that have already drank the Kool-Aid, like the people on the call, the people that support Children's Home Society, our foster parents, adoptive parents, like they already have a passion for this. Like they've already, again, kind of drank the Kool-Aid. I wanted the mayor to come, our city council to come. I wanted influencers to come. Like these are your kids. This is your community. If they don't hear these voices and know these stories, how do they value these stories? That there's this myth that somebody else is, again, taking care of those kids, or the government takes care of those kids. And it's just not true. All across this nation, we need communities to get more engaged and hear and know the stories of the youth that are in their community. And we find that people step up in a different way. So it's, again, how I got connected to you through that experience. And it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was. And I think you brought me to Orange County and other parts of California maybe three or four times, I think. So thank you for that. And what's so cool about that, and actually real quick, Sherry on here I saw was asking, how do you become a foster parent? So Sherry, go to chsnc.org and there's all kinds of information there, and we have people that can help you. So thanks for that question. So what's so interesting about that, Allison, is that the whole idea of telling that story and making that film came from Cody, who I worked with, who was aging out of foster care, and he told me his foster care experience, and then said we should make a movie about my life. And I thought it was a good idea. And so but what he said was, I want to tell my story because nobody's ever listened to me. And I need to tell people who are in a position to make things better for the next generation of kids in foster care. And let's tell my story so we can get those people to understand how they can help us. And that's exactly what you did. You were in that position, and then you thought, okay, who else can I get involved in this to help other young people that are in the system so that they don't age out, so that they can be in a safe, permanent, loving family before they turn 18. And so you did that, you got it, you embraced it, we love you for it. And I would say everybody that's on here, share this conversation, after it ends with anybody that you think is an influencer that doesn't already know what's going on with foster care, with kids and families in your communities, with what Children's Home Society of North Carolina is doing. Please help connect this, because there are people that don't know. And when they know, one of the things that we were able to do, Allison, in North Carolina with that film and the power of that particular story was engage with a woman named Marilyn Avila. She was a representative in North Carolina's General Assembly, and she was somebody that I met, and I actually shared with her a copy of the documentary From Place to Place. And she watched it, and then I met with her about a week later, and she said to me, I made the mistake of watching your documentary. I'd been working for Children's Home Society for about a year at that point, and I thought, this might not go well. But here's what she said. She said, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know that there were kids growing up in foster care that didn't have a permanent family. And now that I've seen their stories and learned, I have kids. She was a chemist or biologist. She didn't know about this, but she said, I'm a mom. I have a family. I have kids. I wouldn't want my kids to have the experience that Cody had. And so if he has it, then others do too. And I need to do something. How can we help? And so it was really just the reality of the experience, but the connection to the personal story and the connection to the power of family. She thought, I have to do something. And so what she did was help us build what we now call the Permanency Innovation Initiative. And that allows us to serve all eligible young people in North Carolina who are at risk of aging out, and serve them with a program, child-focused adoption recruitment, a program that's been researched and has evidence that it works. And we can help kids avoid the realities of aging out, and we can help them find a permanent family. And so it was only because of the power of the story and the connection to family that we were really able to make that happen. And so it's just it's a testament to the power of family and to the voice of young people speaking out on behalf. And so it's the kind of thing that we do at Children's Home Society. And again, we can't do it without the help of supporters. And so we just hope that those of you that are listening in will, again, go to chsnc.org stay home and help us do this kind of work and help us find family for kids that are waiting. Allison, in Instant Family, there's the character Lizzie, who a lot of people probably know and came to love. And, can you talk about her character a little bit and why the Lizzie character? And I think I know this, but I'm curious, did young people in foster care help to kind of craft that character? Can you share that story?
Yeah, every part of the journey, we had youth involved, multiple youth, in fact, probably hundreds of youth, really, because it wasn't just kind of the group that was giving feedback to the script. We engaged, in fact, lots of folks that you see in the movie are connected to foster care. So when we started to produce it, that adoption fair scene, which doesn't happen everywhere, but it still happens here in California, most of those children and families that you see are children that were adopted from foster care. We wanted, and we love to be able to say that, because I love watching the movie with a group of our families and have the kids go, oh wait, those kids are like me. Those kids were adopted like me, because our kids don't see enough kind of positive reflections of their experience. So it was so important. And Sean Anders got this right away because he's an adopted dad. So it was really the story that he wanted to tell. And even though the story's not exactly an Instant Family reflective of his journey, because he didn't adopt a teenager, but along the way, he'd met so many teenagers and youth and really had a deep passion for telling their story and helping the world see them in a different way, not through a stereotypical lens, but actually see a real kid. So the Lizzie character is kind of this amalgamation of like the youth that he got in front of. One of the first things when Sean called me and I got that phone call, like, who is this guy, Sean Anders? I hadn't heard of him. And I'm Googling him, like, is this legit? Because I get a lot of calls about doing reality shows, and you always say no. Like, I'd said no probably 50 times, and this was the one time I went, well, let me keep listening, because as I'm Googling him and looking him up, and I thought, oh no, this sounds completely different, because he wanted to create a movie that would not just nationally but globally tell the accurate story of foster care to adoption. So the themes throughout the entire story became really important, and especially the Lizzie character. He wanted, in fact, in that first phone call, he said, we need to really develop the Lizzie character. And one of the first things he asked me to do was pull in a group of teenage girls that were in foster care or been adopted as teens from foster care. He's like, do you know those kids? And I've been doing this now 28 years. I'm like, oh no, I can get together some girls for you. And the neat thing is, I pulled together kind of 2 nights. The first night was a group of foster adoptive parents, so he could sit and talk to them about their stories and their experiences. And then the next night, he met all the teenage girls that those parents had adopted. So he got the parent perspective, and then the next evening he got the youth perspective. And that was really, I think, kind of a pivotal moment. And Sean talks about this, that really making sure that Lizzie character showed not just the challenges, because Sean would always tell me, like, Allison, you guys in the system kind of tell the wrong story. You're only telling part of the story, like the sad, tragic, dark story. He goes, we need to see Lizzie's strength. The world needs to see her resilience, how amazing she is, what a great parent she's being to her kids, her siblings, how much she loves her siblings. That was really important, that the folks not connected to what we do, again, you and I kind of live this experience, and we have, the folks listening are foster parents and adoptive parents. They have lived experience. But if you're not adopted or you weren't in foster care, we have a limited understanding of that experience, and we often have a stereotype, and there's misconnected to that experience. So it's the thing I think we're often, at least for me, the most proud of, is when you watch that Lizzie character, that you of course see her challenges, and that she's scared and she's fearful, and she's doing the best she can, but how strong she is and how resilient she is. That story became really important to tell. And when we screened the movie everywhere, we had youth and alumni, folks that had lived in foster care, been adopted from foster care, like kind of went nuts for like, wow, it's the first time I feel like you guys got it right. Like, they so connected with the Lizzie character. It's just a really kind of proud piece of the film and that part of the storytelling.
No, yeah, it's great, and there's a lot of media, TV shows, movies, what have you, will use foster care as part of a storyline, and it usually doesn't do it justice, in my experience anyway. And what I thought and what I've seen from others is that the way you all were able to put Instant Family together as a full story really resonated with people that were foster parents or alumni of the system or professionals in the system. I think because of exactly that, of how you engage, people with real experience to let them craft the story with you, and a really, really kind of neat thing that you did. And I'm sure that in some way you probably partnered with California Youth Connection to find young people that have, been in the system and are now advocating on behalf of it. And they're a great organization, and do a lot to kind of raise awareness. And we have a similar kind of program here in North Carolina called Say So, Strong Able Youth Speaking Out, which in the last 2 years has actually become a program of Children's Home Society, but they're 22 years old. And I hope this is okay, but I see in the chat that we have somebody on here that's part of Say So, and really kind of neat story. Melinda's on here, I think, and she was one of the founding members of Say So at 16 years old, I believe, and helped to create what it is and make it what it is today. And recently took a job actually working for Say So and helping us kind of do that work. So it's full circle, and it's really neat to see that. But it's they're such a powerful organization because it's a youth-led organization. They decide what their priorities are. They decide where the work needs to be. They decide what they should be doing to make the system better for kids in it today. And I'm just really proud of our involvement with them, and that they look to us to bring them into the CHS family. And so again, if you go to chsnc.org, you can learn more about what Say So does and how to support their work and that sort of thing. So Allison, I think we still have a lot of people on here. I don't want to cut us short, but I know that we wanted to keep this to a shorter conversation. There's so many great scenes in the film, and whether it's with Lizzie or others. But maybe for this audience, is there just a quick kind of one last thought that you'd like to share about either your role in the film or a particular scene in the film that really stands out before we wrap up?
Well, for me, I want to, I have so many, I have 1,000 experiences connected to it. But, one of the things I really want to do, because I feel like our foster parents, really, their experience shined through. And I don't know that this film would have been able to, or this movie would have been able to be made in the way that it did without Mark Wahlberg. And I'd love folks to kind of hear how that came to be, because he played a foster dad. He's our dad, Pete, in the movie. And he was the first actor to sign on to the movie. Sean Anders had already known him from the Daddy's Home movies. And Sean tells this great story about, kind of sending Mark the kind of rough draft, the script, and waiting around like, on pins and needles, like, is he going to say yes? And does he want it? And Mark Wahlberg immediately was like, this is my movie. I'm your Pete, like, I'm your guy. He was immediately really passionate about that, because he's passionate about youth and care. He'd be the one to tell you, I know what it's like to grow up, just in a rough area, and what that experience is like. And he's been around a lot of our youth and has a passion for youth that have significant challenges. So he was the first one to sign on. And for me to have this Mark making Pete come to life, because I had read, I think 15 scripts, because the script was evolving, being refined. And then to watch Mark make the Pete character come to life and show the vulnerability of our dads. It's one of the things I don't always feel like we have enough of our dads connected to foster care and adoption. We often hear the voices, which I love, of our women and our moms, but we don't often hear the voices or see our dads and be that engaged and involved. So for me, having Mark be as passionate as he was, because he was deeply passionate about making this movie. I mean, he made it happen. And once you get a Mark Wahlberg, you get Paramount Studios. Like, you get him first, and then you get a studio. But if it doesn't all gel right, you don't get enough money to make a really good movie, because that just costs. So having him sign on board, and then you get Rose Byrne, who was an amazing Ellie, and you get Octavia Spencer, Oscar winning, amazing, playing a social worker. And by the way, the neat thing, I just want folks to know that they probably don't know, it was a proud moment for me, because Sean, they had named the character in the movie. Most folks don't know this, but her character, Karen Allison. And Sean goes, guess who's playing Karen Allison? Octavia Spencer. I mean, how do you not? That's like a drop the mic moment in your life, where you go, what? And just meeting her and watching it all, watching her bring that character to life. And Tig, who's one of the funniest humans on the planet, funny stories connected to all of it. So yeah, just again, I do feel like I scored. When we were screening the movie, I had so many social workers and therapists go, how in the hell did you get that gig? Like, whatever you did, I want a gig like that. So I do get that, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it really was just amazing.
Yeah. So a couple things to kind of wrap up on. One, we're going to come back together at 1 p.m. With Sean, and maybe you can tell even a little bit more. How did you get that gig? I think that's a fascinating story. I'm sure a lot of people they could get something like that. And the other thing too is that we have a lot of comments here, and so feel free to keep putting comments and questions in. We'll do our best to get back to you all with information or answers, provide links, that sort of thing. And so thanks for putting your comments and questions in. And I thought maybe to wrap up here, Allison, as we've been talking, I've just been thinking about family and the importance of family, and in this time too with the coronavirus, and thinking about my own family. And I wanted to just share a quick story of the most impactful member of my family in my life, and that was my grandfather, who passed away a number of years ago, and just a really incredible guy. Lived an amazing life. I mean, through the Depression, but also he was a prisoner of war in World War II, and then came back and went to college and got into the lumber industry of all things, and fell in love with the lumber industry, and would talk about trees in a way that would make him cry. And so trees gave him and his family everything, and allowed him to do some amazing things with his life. And when he died, on his funeral card, we put in quotes, "the man who planted trees." And so that's what he always liked to do. He had it in his garage. He was always growing stuff and always planting trees. And, he even started a program to reforest the country of Haiti, which is massively deforested. So the man loved trees. And what he would say is that the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you never expect to sit,
Mm-hmm.
which really just means give to other people, help people in need, and do it selflessly. Do it because it's the right thing to do, and it's going to help somebody else, and you may or may not ever know it or even benefit from it, but you do it because it helps. And I think that's, in some ways, that's what I think Sean was trying to do, what you were trying to do within the family. And it's certainly what Children's Home Society is trying to do every single day. We're just trying to do what helps kids and families in a time of need. It's not going to benefit us. We may not even ever see the results of our work, but we do it because it's the right thing to do. And And that's, my grandfather taught me that's the way to live, and that's the true meaning of life. And so I wanted to share that and just say that everybody that's on here that's going to support Children's Home Society this year and help us keep our programs going strong. I mean, that's what your donations are doing. I mean, you're planting trees, and you're helping kids and families in need by doing that. And so we appreciate that, and we thank you. And we thank you for joining this conversation. This was fun, Allison. So something new for us. We've never done anything quite like this as part of our fundraiser. And so thanks for experimenting with us and jumping in.
Well, and Sean, can I add, Matt, because we're having Sean at 10. Can I add that that we're all going back to our story, like we're all creating our own story. I'm creating my story, you're creating your story, every person, listening in, that's what our life is. Like, we're creating our story. The ability to impact somebody else's story, that's an honor and a gift. It's a privilege to impact someone else's story, to create a platform where our alumni can give voice to their story. We still haven't gotten there yet nationally. There's still a lot of work that we have to do, but it's an honor and a privilege to impact somebody else's story. That really it is that, we're all on this quest to be the hero in our own story. But not everyone is born with the same privilege and the same circumstances. So for me, it's always an honor and a privilege to really partner with organizations like yours and others that really are on the front lines, trying to impact the stories of youth and children and families that are vulnerable.
No, absolutely. It is. I mean, there's nothing more fundamental than family. There's nothing more important than family. And I don't think there's any more true form of expression of the love of family than telling the story of family. So, and there's so many different stories to tell, and it's important work. And so, thank you again, Allison, for being who you are and doing what you do. But thanks for joining us and supporting Children's Home Society. And everybody that's on here, thank you so much. Again, you can go to chsnc.org/stayhome. And that's where you can support us this year online. And remember, 25% of what you give through the month of April will actually go to our Family Relief Fund. And so you'll be helping us help families that we serve who are struggling right now because of the impacts of the coronavirus. So please do that. Please share this video and come back at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be back on. Allison and I will be back on, and Sean Anders, the director of Instant Family, will join us, and we'll have a little bit more fun. So thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks, everybody. See you soon. Thanks, Matt.
Yes, thank you.